I remember the exact second I saw it. Her car, parked right there in front of his house, lights on inside, curtains drawn, and my stomach just dropped. Truth is, I'd been feeling it for weeks, maybe months. That little gnawing in your gut you try to ignore because you don't want to believe it's real. You ever had that happen? Where you keep telling yourself, nah, I'm overthinking this. But deep down, yeah, that was me. And here's the thing. It didn't start with anything huge. No big fight. No obvious sign. It started small, her phone suddenly always face down. The quick little swipes to clear her screen when I'd walk in the room. The late, I'm just gonna grab a coffee, runs that seemed, well, too frequent. At first, I didn't push. I mean, you want to trust your wife, right? You want to believe it's just work, stress, or needing a little space. But then one Saturday morning, she comes down dressed up, and I don't mean jeans and a sweater. I mean full-on makeup, hair done just right, that perfume she saves for nights out. I said, "What's the occasion?" She just smiled, not the warm smile I used to know, but that tight one, and said, "Just meeting a friend for coffee." And I'm thinking, a friend? At 10 a.m.? Dressed like that? Guess what? My mind went straight to one person, Mark. Her ex. The guy from high school who always somehow stayed in the background. You know the type, he's got that history with her. Enough inside jokes to last a lifetime. Pops up with a, "How have you been?" every couple years. She'd always say they were just friends now. But I remembered the way her eyes lit up when she mentioned him years ago. And that never sat right with me. I tried to shake it off. I told myself, don't be that jealous husband. But then it started happening more. Once a week, twice a week. Always coffee. Always a friend. So one day, I decided to test it. She told me she was meeting her mom for lunch. I kissed her goodbye, watched her drive off, then waited 15 minutes, grabbed my keys, and followed not right behind her, just enough distance. My heart was pounding. I kept telling myself I was crazy, that I was about to waste gas chasing nothing. But then, I saw it. She wasn't headed toward her mom's place. She drove straight across town, pulled into this fancy little coffee shop I'd never even been to. And there he was, Mark, sitting by the window, leaning forward, smiling that big smile like they were the only two people in the world. I swear, in that moment, my hands clenched the steering wheel so hard they hurt. I wanted to storm in there, flip the table, demand answers. But I didn't, not gonna lie. It wasn't because I didn't want to. It was because I wanted proof. Real proof. Something she couldn't twist or gaslight me over later. So I stayed in my truck. Watched them laugh. Watched her touch his arm like she used to touch mine. After about an hour, they walked out. No hug, no kiss. But the way they stood there talking, faces close, laughing softly, it told me everything I needed to know. She drove home like nothing happened. That night she made dinner, asked me about my day. I smiled, played along. Inside, I was boiling, really boiling. Over the next couple weeks, it was the same routine. Coffee, laughter, that damn smile she used to save for me. And every time, it was with him. Then came the night that flipped my stomach inside out. She said she was going to her mom's to help with some paperwork. I didn't believe a word of it. I waited an hour, then drove to her mom's. No car, no lights. I sat there in the driveway, staring at the empty spot where her car should have been, and something in me snapped. I drove across town, straight to Mark's neighborhood. I didn't even know why I thought to check there, but my gut was screaming. And there it was, her car, right in front of his house. I pulled over a block away, killed the engine, just sat in the dark. Every light in the place was on. I watched shadows moving through the curtains, heard faint laughter when the wind shifted. I waited, An hour passed. 2. Around midnight, the lights went out. No car door. No footsteps. No engine starting. She wasn't leaving. She was staying the night. And I just sat there, staring at that house, wondering how the hell I was going to get through the next morning without losing it. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her walking out of that coffee shop with him, heard that laugh, saw the way she leaned in just a little too close. Truth is, I kept thinking maybe there was some other explanation, but then I'd picture her car parked out front of his house, with the lights going out, and that hope just died. You ever lay there staring at the ceiling, running every scenario in your head, wondering which version hurts less, the truth you already know or the lie you want to believe? Yeah, that was me. The next morning, she came home like nothing happened. Hair a little messy, same clothes as the night before, phone in her hand, scrolling like it was just another Sunday. She kissed me on the cheek, quick, distracted, and went straight to the shower. I just sat at the kitchen table with my coffee, watching the steam rise. And I'm thinking, does she really think I'm that blind? But here's the thing. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I've been burned before. You go in without proof. They'll spin it, cry, accuse you of being insecure. And I wasn't going to give her that out. So I called my buddy Chris. Now Chris, he's one of those guys who knows how to find things. I told him everything, the coffee shop, the car at his place, the late nights, and he said, give me a week. In the meantime, I played the part. I laughed at her stories, asked about her day, pretended I didn't notice when she slipped out for another coffee date. Inside, I was boiling, really boiling. A few days later, she pulled the same move, said she was going to her mom's, but I followed her from a distance. Same pattern, straight to the coffee shop. And guess what? Mark was already there, waiting. I parked across the street, camera ready this time, snapped a few shots through the window, her leaning in, him touching her hand. That look in her eyes that I hadn't seen directed at me in a long time. After about 40 minutes, they left together in his car. My hands were gripping the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. But I kept my distance. They drove straight to his house. I parked a block away, watched them walk inside like it was the most normal thing in the world. No looking over their shoulders, no hesitation. That was night number 2 I'd caught her staying there. And it wasn't even the same week. Chris called me 3 days later. Man, you're not gonna like this, he said. He'd been tracking her times, locations, even pulled some phone records. 2. Sometimes 3 meetups a week for the past 2 months. And here's the gut punch, one of those nights she stayed over? Yeah, it was our anniversary. While I sat at home thinking she was with her mom, she was at his place. I just sat there holding the phone, staring at the floor, feeling this mix of anger and weird relief. Because now, I wasn't just suspicious, I had proof. Solid proof. That night, she came home late again, smelling like her usual perfume but with this faint hint of a cologne I didn't own. She tossed her bag on the couch, scrolled through her phone, smiled to herself at whatever she was reading. I just watched her, wondering if she even realized how obvious she'd become. And that's when it hit me I could confront her now. Throw the evidence in her face. But she'd just cry, deny, maybe even pack up and run to him. No, I wanted this to land. I wanted her to feel it in her chest, the way I'd been feeling it in mine. So I started planning. Not gonna lie, some of the ideas I had weren't exactly mature, but the one I landed on, let's just say it was going to be public. Very public. Because here's the thing. When someone betrays you in secret, the temptation is to drag it out into the light, where they can't hide behind lies anymore. And I knew the perfect moment was coming: her sister's birthday dinner. Everyone would be there. Her parents, her cousins, the whole crowd. And she wouldn't see it coming, not until it was way too late to run. So the night finally came. Her sister's birthday dinner. And truth is, I had rehearsed every beat of it like a scene I couldn't stop replaying, the kind where your heart already knows the room before your feet even cross the door. We arrived a little early. She was glowing, arm hooked through mine, thanking the host, laughing at small talk. And I'm thinking, if they only knew. Family trickled in with hugs and quick jokes and clinking glasses. Her mother squeezed my shoulder and told me I looked tired. And I smiled because tired sounded better than honest. Not gonna lie. The air felt heavy, like it could smell the envelope I kept tapping inside my jacket. Thick with proof. Thick with the kind of facts that don't need volume to be loud. I watched her smile bounce from face to face and slide right past mine. And here's the thing. You ever notice how someone can be sitting next to you and be miles away at the same time? Soup, salad, stories. The easy rhythm families fall into when they think nothing is about to explode. And I nodded at the right beats, while my mind replayed, her leaning across that coffee shop table, the soft private smile, the way the porch light glowed outside a house that wasn't ours. I was angry, really angry. But anger wasn't the point anymore. Truth was. When the cake came with candles and everyone started singing, I felt my hands steady. And that surprised me. Because steady isn't how you feel when the ground has been sliding under you for weeks. Maybe steady is what happens when you finally decide you won't carry lies home. Her sister blew the candles. Cheers went up. Forks tapped plates. And I stood. I raised my glass and said I had a few words. She turned toward me with that polite, careful smile people wear when they expect a safe toast. I reached into my jacket, set the envelope down in front of her, and said, "Go on." She paused, like the paper might be hot, then slid out the photos with her thumb. First photo, her and Mark in the window light of that coffee shop, leaning in too close, smiling like the room had shrunk to two. Second photo, their hands, that soft, private look I hadn't seen directed at me in a very long time. Third, a time-stamped shot of her car outside his house at 11:43 p.m. Curtains drawn. Porch light casting a quiet yellow across the hood. The table went quiet so fast it felt like the air had been vacuumed out of the room. I let the silence sit there, heavy and honest, because sometimes silence tells the story better than any speech. Then I said it plain. For 2 months, my wife has been meeting her ex for coffee, and she has been spending the night at his place. Her mother's hand found her mouth. Her sister stared at me like I'd dropped a glass, and we were all waiting to see how far the pieces would fly. Someone whispered Mark's name, and the truth finally had a shape everyone could see. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. "It's not," she started. I shook my head. And here's the thing. One of those nights was our anniversary. While I sat at home thinking she was with her mom, she was there. I didn't shout. I didn't slam anything. I just laid the facts down and let them be heavy. Then I slid one more paper across the table, the deed to our house. "Locks change Monday," I said. "Pack what you want before then." The sound that followed wasn't crying yet. It was that first thin crack you hear when ice starts to break. I put cash under my plate for our meals, thanked the host, nodded to the family, and walked out into air that finally felt clean. On the drive home, I breathed in and out like I was counting steady, 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 and I mean, the hurt tried to drag me sideways, but the lane stayed straight. At the house, I set boxes in the garage, folded her clothes, taped the lids, wrote her name on the sides. It felt mechanical, almost gentle, like returning borrowed things after a long, confusing loan. My phone buzzed her name. Then messages. Long paragraphs that stacked on top of each other. Promises to explain. To talk. To fix what words had already broken. Truth is, I had heard enough. The next day I went to work, came home, moved more boxes until the rooms looked the way rooms look when a decision has finally been made. She stopped by once, stayed on the driveway, asked for 10 minutes. And I'm thinking, 10 minutes cannot unwind 2 months. I told her the keys would stop working on Monday. She nodded, said she was sorry, said she loved me. and the words felt like birds trapped behind glass, no way out, no way back. I didn't gloat. I didn't spit anger just to feel tall. I let the moment be small, because small is all that's left when trust has been drained from a room. A week later, a friend told me Mark had already ended it. No more coffee, no more late lights, no more messages that smelled like someone else's cologne. Guess what? The thrill needed shadows to breathe. Daylight took it away. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. I sat on the back steps with a glass of water and listened to the evening settle on the fence like quiet birds. You ever notice how silence can sound like relief when your chest has been hauling stones? And here's the thing. I wasn't interested in revenge that burns the house you still have to live in. I wanted a life that didn't need secrets to stand up straight. So I started small. I woke early, made coffee for one, walked the neighborhood when the sun was low, called my brother, called a friend, told the truth without flinching. I took off my ring and set it in a drawer. And the weight that left my hand felt like a door finally clicking open. I put the envelope in a file, shut the cabinet, and promised not to open it unless I had to. Some nights I still saw that coffee shop window in my head and, not gonna lie, it stung. Memory hangs on even after the latch is closed. But I breathed slow in, slow out, counted the seconds. Let the ache pass like a wave that doesn't ask permission. People said I handled it with grace. I don't know about grace. I just chose not to drown in noise. Maybe that's a different kind of mercy. And if you're listening and you're in that strange quiet after the blast, trust me, you don't want to know how many times I almost called, almost begged, almost asked to pretend we could rewind. I didn't. I chose forward. Not fast, not loud, not dramatic. Just forward, step by unglamorous step, until the air in my lungs felt like mine again. And when Monday came, the locks changed, the boxes left, and the house sounded different, empty but honest. And it hit me that honest beats crowded every single time. That's the lesson I kept. That's the life I kept. And if she ever wonders why I didn't scream, the answer is simple. I didn't need to. The truth had already done the shouting for me.